Namaskar and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. In the show tonight, we focus on the concerns around the new highly contagious COVID variant called Omicron, measures that are being taken across the world and in India. Meanwhile, in his Mann Ki Baat address, Prime Minister Modi lauds the achievements of India's startup ecosystem among taking up other issues. 52nd edition of International Film Festival of India, IFFI, concludes in a glittering ceremony. We'll recount some of the memories of the past days of celebrating cinematic excellence, all that and more. First, the top stories. Series of meetings ahead of winter session of Parliament. Government ready to discuss all issues as per norms and appeals to opposition to help in smooth transaction of legislative business. Bill to repeal the 3 farm laws listed as priority. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauds astounding success of startup ecosystem in India in Mann Ki Baat, encourages youth to innovate, says natural resources of the nation must be conserved, mentions people's effort in reviving Noon River in Geelong. Amidst rising concerns about new COVID variant Omicron, meeting chaired by Home Secretary comprehensively reviews overall global situation in the wake of the virus. Health Ministry has written to all states and union territories calling for rigorous surveillance for international travellers, enhanced testing, monitoring of hotspots, ensuring augmentation of health infrastructure and ensuring prompt dispatch of samples for genome sequencing, besides regular press briefing by state for prompting COVID-appropriate behaviour and vaccination. Nations across the world gear up to face the challenge of the new COVID variant Omicron. European nations impose fresh travel restrictions. Canada closes borders to foreign travellers. WHO issues warning to Southeast Asian nations. South African president convenes meeting. Tamil Nadu records 75% above normal rains. Heavy rains wreak havoc in southern states, including Kerala. Heavy rainfall forecast in parts of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh on Monday. IMD issues alert. BJP sweeps civic polls held in northeastern state of Tripura in a majority of urban local bodies, including Agartala. Prime Minister calls it victory of good governance. BJP Chief JP Nadda hails the efforts of party workers led by Chief Minister Biplab Dev. '52nd edition of International Film Festival of India, IFFI, concludes. Japanese film Ring Wandering bags Golden Peacock. Best Director Award goes to Czech Republic's Václav Kadenka for saving one who was dead. Marathi actor Jitendra Joshi bags Best Actor Award. Spanish actress Angela Molina adjudged Best Actress. And in sports, in the first test between India and New Zealand, on 4th day, New Zealand scores 4 runs in the second innings without loss, faces target of 284 runs to win on the final day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his Mann Ki Baat address lauded the astounding success of startup ecosystem in the country. He said a unicorn is being raised in India every 10 days. He said India is getting record investments and support for startups post-2015. He praised the Indian youth for achieving this feat in the midst of the COVID pandemic challenge.
During the 83rd edition of the monthly radio program Mann Ki Baat, Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded Indian startups, saying that they are providing solutions to global problems. Prime Minister said, year after year, startups are getting record investments. This sector is growing at a very fast pace. Even in small cities of the country, the reach of startups has increased. Nowadays, the word unicorn is very much in circulation.
आजकल हम चारों तरफ सुनते हैं स्टार्टअप स्टार्टअप स्टार्टअप। सही बात है, ये स्टार्टअप का युग है और ये भी सही है कि स्टार्टअप की दुनिया में आज भारत विश्व में एक प्रकार से नेतृत्व कर रहा है। आजकल यूनिकॉर्न शब्द खूब चर्चा में है। आप सबने इसके बारे में सुना होगा। यूनिकॉर्न एक ऐसा स्टार्टअप होता है जिसका वैल्यूएशन कम से कम $1 बिलियन होता है, यानी करीब करीब 7,000 करोड़ रुपए से ज्यादा। साथियों, साल 2015 तक देश में बमुश्किल 9 या 10 यूनिकॉर्न हुआ करते थे। आपको ये जानकर बेहद खुशी होगी कि अब यूनिकॉर्न्स की दुनिया में भी भारत तेज उड़ान भर रहा है। एक रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक इसी साल एक बड़ा बदलाव आया है। सिर्फ 10 महीनों में ही भारत में हर 10 दिन में एक यूनिकॉर्न बना है। ये इसलिए भी बड़ी बात है क्योंकि हमारे युवाओं ने ये सफलता कोरोना महामारी के बीच हासिल की है। आज भारत में 70 से अधिक यूनिकॉर्न हो चुके हैं, यानी 70 से अधिक स्टार्टअप ऐसे हैं जो 1 बिलियन से ज्यादा के वैल्यूएशन को पार कर गए हैं। साथियों, स्टार्टअप की इस सफलता के कारण हर किसी का उस पर ध्यान गया है और जिस प्रकार से देश से विदेश से निवेशकों से उसे समर्थन मिल रहा है, शायद कुछ साल पहले उसकी कोई कल्पना भी नहीं कर सकता था।
Prime Minister said that in today's time, startups are highly appreciated and considered as an important milestone in the development journey of the country.
कुछ सालों पहले यदि कोई कहता था कि वो बिजनेस करना चाहता है या कोई नई कंपनी शुरू करना चाहता है, तब परिवार के बड़े बुजुर्ग का जवाब होता था, तुम नौकरी क्यों नहीं करना चाहते? नौकरी करो ना भाई। अरे नौकरी में सिक्योरिटी होती है, सैलरी होती है, झंझट भी कम होती है। लेकिन आज यदि कोई अपनी कंपनी शुरू करना चाहता है तो उसके आसपास के सभी लोग बहुत उत्साहित होते हैं और इसमें उसका पूरा सपोर्ट भी करते हैं। साथियों, भारत की ग्रोथ स्टोरी का यह टर्निंग पॉइंट है, जहां अब लोग सिर्फ जॉब सीकर्स बनने का सपना नहीं देख रहे, बल्कि जॉब क्रिएटर्स भी बन रहे हैं। इससे विश्व मंच पर भारत की स्थिति और मजबूत बनेगी।
In his address, the Prime Minister also discussed the resolutions being taken by the countrymen on the completion of 75 years of independence. Bureau Report, DD India.
And hailing citizens for taking steps to preserve nature, Prime Minister Modi, in his 83rd Mann Ki Baat address, talked about Meghalaya's floating boat image. It seems to be in the air. Prime Minister also highlighted that apart from government schemes and initiatives, people's effort bring happiness and change. Prime Minister in the session talked about preserving nature and people's efforts towards environment, citing example of Umngot River in Meghalaya.
जब हम प्रकृति का संरक्षण करते हैं तो बदले में प्रकृति हमें भी संरक्षण और सुरक्षा देती है। इस बात को हम अपने निजी जीवन में भी अनुभव करते हैं और ऐसा ही एक उदाहरण तमिलनाडु के लोगों ने व्यापक स्तर पर प्रस्तुत किया है। ये उदाहरण है तमिलनाडु के तूतुकुड़ी जिले का। हम जानते हैं कि तटीय इलाकों में कई बार जमीन के डूबने का खतरा रहता है। तूतुकुड़ी में भी कई छोटे आइलैंड और टापू ऐसे थे जिनके समुद्र में डूबने का खतरा बढ़ रहा था। यहाँ के लोगों ने और विशेषज्ञों ने इस प्राकृतिक आपदा का बचाव प्रकृति के जरिए ही खोजा। ये लोग अब इन टापुओं पर पाल्मेरा के पेड़ लगा रहे हैं। ये पेड़ साइक्लोन और तूफानों में भी खड़े रहते हैं और जमीन को सुरक्षा देते हैं। इनसे अब इस इलाके को बचाने का एक नया भरोसा जगा है। साथियों, प्रकृति से हमारे लिए खतरा तभी पैदा होता है जब हम उसके संतुलन को बिगाड़ते हैं या उसकी पवित्रता नष्ट करते हैं। प्रकृति माँ की तरह हमारा पालन भी करती है और हमारी दुनिया में नए नए रंग भी भरती है।
And the centre has been leading the fight against global pandemic with the whole of government and whole of society approach. There's an ongoing effort to strengthen stakeholders for COVID management. The government has been continuously advising the states and union territory governments and various nodal agencies on focused public health responses that are revised based on emerging evidence. Union Health Secretary has advised states and union territories regarding testing, surveillance, monitoring of hotspots, augmentation of health infrastructure in the country, genome sequencing and enhancing public awareness. A meeting was chaired by Home Secretary on Sunday where the overall global situation in the wake of Omicron virus variant was comprehensively reviewed.
कोरोना अभी गया नहीं है, सावधानी बरतना हम सबकी जिम्मेवारी है.
India has stepped up the efforts to tackle any possible scenario in the wake of the emergence of Omicron variant of COVID in many nations. Following a high-level review by the Prime Minister on the new COVID variant of concern Omicron, an urgent meeting was chaired by the Home Secretary on Sunday. The meeting was held with various experts and senior officers from the health, civil aviation and other ministries. Overall global situation in wake of Omicron virus was comprehensively reviewed. Various preventive measures in place and to be further strengthened were discussed. Government will review the standard operating procedure on testing and surveillance of incoming international passengers, especially for those countries identified at risk category. Genomic surveillance for variants will be further strengthened and intensified. Decision on effective date of resumption of scheduled commercial international passengers service will be reviewed as per evolving global scenario. A closer watch on emerging pandemic situation within the country will also be maintained. The Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan has written to the states and union territories over the Omicron variant of COVID-19. He has also advised the states to enforce intensive containment and active surveillance measures and also increase coverage of vaccination. In view of the possible threat that this variant of concern can pose to the nation, it is imperative that the intensive containment, active surveillance, increased coverage of vaccination and COVID-appropriate behavior must be enforced in the field in a very proactive manner to effectively manage this variant of concern. Rigorous surveillance of international passengers. There is already a reporting mechanism for obtaining past travel details of passengers coming through international flights, and this should be reviewed at your level. Enhanced testing. Ample testing infrastructure needs to be operationalized to tackle any surge due to this mutated virus. It has been observed that the overall testing as well as the proportion of RT-PCR tests have declined in some states. In the absence of sufficient tests, it is extremely difficult to determine the true level of infection spread. Ensuring prompt dispatch of samples for genome sequencing, INSACOG has been set up to monitor circulating variants in the country. It is important that at this juncture, states must significantly increase sampling from the general population. INSACOG, which is short for Indian SARS-CoV-2 Genomics Consortium, is a multi-laboratory, multi-agency and pan-India network to monitor genomic variations of the coronavirus. Ensuring augmentation of health infrastructure, having adequate availability of health facilities across the state is essential to ensure that there are no delays in providing care. States are requested to optimally use financial support provided by the government. Monitoring of hotspots, continued monitoring of hotspots, regular press briefings by state for vaccination. All states should proactively and regularly address the concerns of community through press briefings. Many states have started taking precautionary measures. Karnataka has stepped up COVID-fighting measures. Chief Ministers of Haryana, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra have taken stock of the situation and chaired crucial meetings of the officials.
हमने निर्देश दिए हैं कि दूसरे देशों से मध्य प्रदेश में आने वाले यात्रियों के संबंध में भारत सरकार के सर्विलांस के नियमों का कड़ाई से पालन किया जाए.
India is on a maximum alert in view of the evolving situation and complete precaution is being observed and smallest possible details are being appropriately handled by officials at all levels. Bureau Report, DD India.
And concerns are mounting over the spread of the new, more contagious COVID variant around the world. The variant is called Omicron. Nations are resorting to familiar measures like quarantine and shutting the borders, particularly to travellers from southern Africa. Experts are worried about the efficacy of existing vaccines on the new variant. Britain has announced new measures to curb the spread of infection. Canada is shutting boundaries to foreign travellers, and US leadership is pushing for COVID-appropriate behaviour among masses. Here's more from across the world.
We thought that it's 2 years and it's almost over. but we see that every time another version comes, and it's frustrating actually.
I think it's a very long story. It's coming more and more kind of corona, and I don't know what is the end of the story. Very difficult to say.
A passenger from South Africa recounts her experience at the Dutch airport. Amidst growing concerns about Omicron coronavirus variant, she is now on quarantine in Netherlands. Authorities in Amsterdam say 61 of around 600 people who arrived in the Dutch city on 2 flights from South Africa had tested positive for coronavirus. Health authorities were carrying out tests to see if those cases involved the new variant. Australia and several other countries joined nations imposing restrictions on travel from South Africa on Saturday after discovery of Omicron coronavirus variant sparked global concern. Omicron has been dubbed a variant of concern by World Health Organization. It is potentially more contagious than previous variants of the disease, and scientists are scrambling to understand its mutations and find out whether current vaccines are effective against it. At Johannesburg Airport, stranded passengers shared their ordeal due to cancelled flights.
If I arrive in the UK after 4 p.m., I have to quarantine in a hotel on my cost for 10 days. I don't have the money, I don't have the £2,000 to quarantine.
And I feel very sad for the people here as well, going back on the red list again, and who knows for how long, not being able to see family.
The variant was first discovered in South Africa and has since been detected in Belgium, Botswana, Israel and Hong Kong. A minister in the German state of Hesse said the variant had very probably arrived in Germany in a traveller returning from South Africa. Britain announced new measures on Saturday to try and slow the spread of the newly identified Omicron coronavirus variant, and a top health official said there was reasonable chance that vaccines could be less effective against it. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said arrivals from all countries would have to self-isolate until receiving a negative result from a PCR test, and that face masks must be worn in retail setting, and it was time to step up the booster jabs.
There is also a very extensive mutation, which means it diverges quite significantly from previous configurations of the virus, and as a result it might, at least in part, reduce the protection of our vaccines over time. We need to slow down the seeding of this variant in our country. We need to buy time for our scientists to understand exactly what we're dealing with, and for us to get more people vaccinated, and above all, to get more people boosted.
Meanwhile, Canada is closing its borders to foreign travellers who have recently been to 7 southern African countries to help stop the spread of a newly identified variant. The European Union, United States and Britain are among those tightening border controls as researchers probe whether the mutation is vaccine resistant. Amidst the rising panic about the more contagious variant of COVID-19, world leaders are reminding people about COVID-appropriate behavior. US Vice President Kamala Harris stressed upon the importance of vaccines and booster shots. She echoed President Joe Biden's concern regarding the new Omicron variant of COVID-19, as Britain, Germany and Italy reported detecting cases.
I have been briefed, and as the President has said, we're going to take every precaution, and so that's why we've taken the measures we have. But again, I can't stress enough. One, if you have not had the booster shot, get the booster shot. Cannot stress enough the importance of getting vaccinated for those who have not been vaccinated. I will say what I say every time because it remains true. They are safe, the vaccines are safe, they are free, and they will save your life.
More and more countries around the world are restricting travel from Southern Africa as details of the spread of new COVID variant Omicron emerges. South African leaders have called the travel ban unjust and that their nation was being punished for detecting a new variant. Financial markets plunged globally, especially stocks of airlines, as investors worried the variant could cause another surge in the pandemic and stall global recovery. Bureau Report, DD India. That brings us to the issue in focus this evening, Omicron protecting against the new COVID variant. And two special guests are joining me to take forward the conversation. Dr. Rakesh Agarwal, Director, JIP MER and member WHO Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization. And also Dr. Sunil Kumar Raina, Advisor, World Health Network and COVID Action Group, and Professor and Head, Community Medicine, Government Medical College, Himachal Pradesh. Good evening and warm welcome to both of you. Dr. Agarwal, if I can begin with you, the concerns about this new variant, if you could first help us understand what is it all about? How much do we at this point in time know about this new variant of COVID-19?
So a variant is a type of virus where the virus has changed somewhat from what the original virus was. We are familiar with that. We have had other variants, including the Delta variant. So this is a new variant which has been named as Omicron variant. This has several changes. I know that in the media it's being talked about that the number of changes is very large, but that does not mean much. The number of changes may not really have any relationship with the characteristics of the variant. Why do we worry about the variant? There can be 4 reasons for us to worry about a variant. First, a variant may be much more transmissible, meaning it can easily transfer from one person to another. Second, a variant virus may be resistant to antibodies, whether those have been produced by natural infection or in response to the vaccine. Third, the variant may cause infection, which may be more severe, or may have other differences compared to the infection with the ancestral virus, such as it can affect younger people, it can infect children, etc. And finally, there can be, so these are the 3 main differences, let's stick to those. This virus, there is a suspicion that this might be more transmissible, just like was true for Delta virus. However, that's based only on a few observations.
Right.
The frequency of this virus has increased in some towns in South Africa. But that can happen if there is a super spreader event. For instance, we have seen recently in some colleges in Karnataka, there was a spread to suddenly 300 people or students within a college. Now, if the spread occurs from a person who has Omicron, then suddenly it would seem that this is highly transmissible, but that happens even otherwise. We have had super spreader events earlier also with the other viruses. So we don't yet know whether this is more transmissible. Right. Is it resistant to the vaccine? We do not know. Some of the cases that have happened among those who were previously vaccinated, but that's true for all viruses. We know that vaccines are not 100% protective against infection.
Right.
Third, does it cause more serious disease? We have no evidence of that as of today. So it is a variant that we are interested in, which we are bothered about,
right,
but does not necessarily mean that it will turn out to be a serious thing.
Right.
But what we need to do is to prevent infection.
Right, Dr. Agarwal, we'll talk about each of the aspects.
We just need to wear masks and do other precautions.
Right. We'll, in fact, sir, talk about each of the aspects that you so clearly mentioned. Dr. Raina, if I can come to you. Given that there's so much about this variant Omicron that we don't know, the kind of impact it has on people, then what is the strategy ahead for nations and for individuals to protect against these variants? We of course talked about the border closure, surveillance at airports that is already taking place. India has also taken measures of similar nature. For people, what does it mean? How do we protect ourselves from this or any variant of COVID?
First, thanks for having me, and really an important question. Now, I will draw an analogy to it. Now, if you have something that you are ventured out in night, and if you have something in front of you about which you don't know, it's a structure or a shape in front of you, and you are not convinced that it is not something that is going to harm you, or you are not very sure whether this is going to harm you, the best or the most prudent approach is to stay away from it. Precaution is the key. Probably that is something that applies to everybody. It applies to the individuals, it applies to the nation. The best way to tackle Omicron, as well as any other variant that is going to come to us, is to have a precautionary approach. And over a period of time in the last 2 years that we have had this pandemic, we have learned that these precautionary approaches do work. For example, increasing surveillance to pick up newer variants, one. using the masks when we move in public places, better quality masks, improving ventilation, following all COVID appropriate related behavior, that is the key. With regard to border closures, I would answer this in this way. The approach is both yes or a no. Because no, it's not time to panic. Probably by this time, in last 2 years, we have arrived at certain conclusions that tell us that something works against this pandemic. For example, as I said, these precautions work. But yes, because of the fact that we are at a situation that if it snowballs, theoretically it can snowball. Because of the fact that we have said that this is more fitter virus than the earlier one, and it has the capability of being, so theoretically we have the chance.
Right. I think we're facing some technical issues in connecting with Dr. Raina. We'll connect with him in just a bit. Dr. Agarwal, meanwhile, if I can come to you, you mentioned about how this new variant was first identified, and we also mentioned in our story earlier in southern African nations. Now, we also know that in that region, the vaccination drive has been weak in most of the countries, making them vulnerable. And similarly, in developing countries where the vaccination drive is weaker, when such a new variant comes up, how vulnerable does this population become in that case?
So it can be very variable. So it's not only the vaccine, but infection themselves also protect. So there could be a country where vaccination has been very low, but the disease has already been occurred, infection has already occurred in many people, and they may be protected because of that. So then it may not spread much. But if the disease has not been transmitted much in the population and a large number of people are non-immune, then the variant is much more likely to cause infection, just like the ancestral or the wild type virus would. The same would be true for the variant. One thing that we need to keep in mind is that the variant vaccines and natural infection possibly protect against this variant also.
Right.
Initially, we thought that the vaccine may not protect against Delta, but we know that the protection is there, even though it may be slightly lower, and the same is possibly going to be true for Omicron. Of course, we can't say that right now till we have more data.
Right. Dr. Raina, the government in the various high-level meeting has also spoken about how this opening up of international travel, it will be further reviewed given the challenge posed by the new variant. As a medical expert, what would you say about people planning to travel at this point in time, particularly international travel, and how important it is to avoid it if possible?
Probably that's the best step to take. At this point in time, we are at a critical juncture. Not just in terms of the numbers that we have. We are at a lower level as far as our own numbers are concerned. So one, we should ensure that our numbers don't increase hugely. Because again, if the numbers increase, the chances for mutations are always there. Second, by traveling across the world, you are increasing the chance of importing a new variant more frequently than the fact that if you stay inside. So the key is to stay in your home and avoid travel, which is unnecessary. Avoid as much of travel as possible. And if you are traveling, every time you come back to India, you should voluntarily disclose your travels and tell the government, whoever is in place in the state at that point in time, tell the officials that I have traveled to this particular state and I need to have my test done, because you may be carrying a variant which is not present at this point of time in India, but you may be carrying.
Right. Dr. Agarwal, the COVID testing in the country, in India, has been going on at a very, very strong pace. But often when we get tested, the result tells us if we are COVID positive or not. Given that there is a specific concern about a particular variant, is there need for further assessment of the testing data that we already have to also know wherever COVID positive cases are coming up, what variant is that really is?
So in an individual person, in every patient with COVID, we do not need to know what variant is present. Even for Delta, we did not need that, and even for Omicron, that's possibly going to be true. Most likely it's going to be true.
Right.
But at a national level, at a community level, at a population level, it is useful to know what variant is circulating and in what proportion of people. And that's what INSAFOG does, that a proportion of samples that are being tested that are found to be positive are tested for genotype, and the strain is found out, and that helps us get the population level information. So we have already been doing that, and we will need to continue to do that.
Right. And Dr. Agarwal, your final thoughts really. Each time the COVID numbers go down, many of us are eager to get rid of our masks and COVID appropriate behavior. How significant is to really come to terms with the point about how we have to live with this virus coming up in different variants, and therefore COVID appropriate behavior becomes crucial?
So I think we have to understand that COVID appropriate behavior is here with us to stay for several months. We would need to continue to follow the precautions. We need to wear masks. Right. We need to try and have physical distance between people. We need to avoid unnecessary travel, not only to other cities, not only to other countries, but anytime we go out of our house or our usual workplace, we need to think, is it essential? Can I combine 3 trips into one? Can I minimize? Can I go to a shop where there are fewer people than a shop where there are too many people? Each of these, I think, are here with us to stay at least for the next 1 year.
Right. On that note, Dr. Agarwal, Dr. Raina, thanks very much for joining us on Newsnight, giving us insights about the new variant and ways to stay safe from it. Moving on to other stories, series of meetings took place ahead of the winter session of Parliament that starts on Monday. Government ready to discuss all issues, it is said, as per the norms, and appeals to the opposition to help in the smooth transaction of legislative business. Meanwhile, the bill to repeal the 3 farm laws has been listed as a priority.
The winter session of Parliament is beginning on Monday. Ahead of the winter session, the day saw a series of meetings on Sunday. Ahead of the winter session of Parliament, the government convened an all-party meeting on Sunday. The all-party meeting convened by the government was attended by 42 leaders from 31 parties. While Vice President and the Chairman of Rajya Sabha M. Venkaiah Naidu has convened a meeting of the Rajya Sabha floor leaders. These meetings were convened to ensure smooth functioning of the House ahead of the commencement of the Parliament session. Opposition parties assured their cooperation for smooth running of the Houses, while government said it is ready to discuss all issues in the Parliament.
सभी पार्टियों ने ये डिमांड किया, खास करके जो किसानों का मुद्दा है, एमएसपी और इलेक्ट्रिकल बिल, इसके बारे में सरकार तुरंत एक्शन लेना चाहिए। उसी साथ कोविड का भी जो आज तीसरी लहर फैलने का एक अंदाजा दुनिया में चल रहा है, तो उसकी भी चर्चा हो गई।
सरकार नियम के अधीन जो कुछ भी चर्चा माननीय स्पीकर और माननीय चेयरमैन परमिट करते हैं, वो सब चर्चा के लिए सरकार तैयार है, लेकिन बिना डिसरप्शन सदन चले, सदन का कार्यवाही चले, यही हमने रिक्वेस्ट अपोजिशन से किया है। सभी अपोजिशन हमको आश्वस्त भी किया है कि हम पूरा कोऑपरेट करेंगे और इस बार और ज़्यादा प्रोडक्टिव सदन होगा, सेशन होगा, ऐसे सरकार का उम्मीद है।
Besides these meetings, BJP Parliamentary Executive meeting was also held. The meeting was attended by BJP National President JP Nadda, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha Piyush Goyal, among others. A separate meeting of floor leaders of National Democratic Alliance was held on Sunday. Key bills and businesses to be taken up during the session were discussed in the meeting. On the occasion of Guru Purab on November 19th, Prime Minister had announced the decision to repeal 3 farm laws. Later, the cabinet had approved repeal of farm laws. While government has listed a bill to repeal 3 farm laws for the passage in the Lok Sabha on the very first day of the winter session on Monday, government will be introducing 26 bills in Parliament in the winter session. Expectedly, the winter session of Parliament will be historic in terms of its periodicity, with inputs from Rajesh Raj, Shailendra Mishra, DD India, Delhi.
Let's now talk about cinematic excellence and IFFI. 52nd edition of International Film Festival of India concluded in a glittering closing ceremony in Goa. Japanese film Ring Wandering bagged the Golden Peacock Award. Best Director Award went to Czech Republic's Václav Kadranka for saving one who was dead. Marathi actor Jitendra Joshi bagged the Best Actor award, and Spanish actress Angela Molina was adjudged the Best Actress. Here's more from IFFI.
The 52nd edition of the International Film Festival of India, or IFFI, concluded in Goa on Sunday. The closing ceremony was attended by Chief Minister of Goa, Pramod Sawant, Minister of Information and Broadcasting, Anurag Singh Thakur, CBFC Chairperson Prasoon Joshi, veteran actors Madhuri Dixit, Manoj Bajpayee, and a host of other film personalities. The much-coveted Golden Peacock Award went to Japanese film Ring Wandering, Ringu Wander Ringu. While Spanish film The Wealth of the World by debut director Simon Farriol received the special mention in IFFI 52 debut competition category. The best debut feature film of a director went to Mari Alessandarini for film Zahori, while Czech director Václav Kaderanka bagged the IFFI 52 Silver Peacock for the best director for Saving One Who Is Dead, a candle of hope amidst the winter of despair. Indian and Marathi actor Jitendra Bhikulal Joshi's brilliant portrayal of late Marathi actor and filmmaker Nishikant Kamath in Godavari earned him the Silver Peacock for Best Actor Male. Silver Peacock for the Best Actor Female went to Spanish actor Angela Molina for her role as Charlotte, a performance which captivated all jury members. Goa Chief Minister Pramod Sawant congratulated all the award winners.
गोवा हमेशा के लिए अतिथि भव के लिए जाना जाता है. I also take this opportunity to once again to congratulate the award winner and wish them to create the success in the years to come.
While in a unique initiative aimed at identifying and nurturing young talent, 75 young creative minds of tomorrow were selected and invited from across the country. Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur expressed confidence that some of them will one day be on the global stage and come back to IFFI as icons of cinema in their own right. He also expressed hope that India will emerge as a top film shoot and post-production destination for AVGC.
We aim to make India a powerhouse of content creation, especially the regional cinema, by scaling up the regional festivals. We aim to make India the post-production hub for the world by leveraging the immense tech talent amongst our youth. We make to India the hub of world cinema, a destination for films and festivals, and the most favored place for filmmakers and film lovers.
Iconic actor Randhir Kapoor was felicitated for his stellar and exceptional contribution to Indian cinema, while actor Manoj Bajpayee too was honoured at the closing ceremony. He said that this platform is a great vehicle to support the new filmmakers, while actor Madhuri Dixit, who was felicitated at the ceremony, termed the IFFI as the biggest film festival in India.
It's an honour to be a part of the 52nd edition of the International Film Festival of India, the biggest and the most recognised film festival in India.
Uttar Pradesh has been awarded the most friendly state for film shooting. This year, the event was held in Goa from November 20th to 28th, 2021. The 52nd IFFI had nearly 10,000 delegates in its hybrid format this year. Total screenings of 234, nearly 500 hours of movies were screened. Total hours watched online were over 30,000 hours. These included filmmakers, students and cine enthusiasts from across the world. Over 50 films were screened simultaneously on OTT platforms. 10 masterclasses and in-conversation sessions were organized in collaboration with OTT platforms. Manoj Bajpayee, Hrithik Roshan, Shujit Sarkar were amongst many other masters of cinema who shared their experiences. 75 Indian films were screened during the festival. 52nd IFFI presented a unique experience for the film enthusiast with a diverse catalogue of over 148 foreign films from 73 countries.
I would like to thank my Honourable Minister for guiding us all through. Not many of you know that this entire changed format architecture of the International Film Festival, the 52nd edition, the credit of this should go to our young dynamic minister, Mr. Anurag Singh Thakur. This hybrid festival in a post-pandemic era has set the tone for the global community, whether it's at Cannes, Toronto, or Venice, to look at the 52nd edition as to how festivals are organized in a country such as India, the soft power of filmmaking.
IFFI kept up its progressive evolution and adaptation with the changing contours of technology. For the first time in history, all major OTT participated in the film festival through exclusive masterclasses, content launches and previews, curated film package screenings and various other on-ground and virtual events. With inputs from Rukma Datta, News Night Desk, DD India.
And that brings us to the second issue in focus this evening, 52nd IFFI celebrating cinematic excellence. And two very special guests are joining me for this conversation. Neela Madhav Panda, filmmaker and director, also member of jury for international competition, and Nalla Muthu, jury chairperson, Indian Panorama non-feature. Good evening and warmest welcome to both of you, and congratulations for the spectacular International Film Festival of India. After all, both of you were also part of this celebration. Mr. Panda, if I can begin with you, how was it, this edition, 52nd edition of IFFI? We saw all the glitter in our reports, but to be a part of it, to be part of the jury, seeing that cinematic excellence unfold in front of you, take us through your experience.
Well, I've been coming for last 10 years to IFFI Goa, but this year is truly special. Also, it's because I was part of the international jury. But this was really spectacular. As we say, what you see this year's festival is it's set a tune of celebration of cinema globally. And this year, there's so much to do, so much, it's a whole new generation festival happened, I would say, because the kind of collections, the kind of selections of films we had, like I was in the international jury, there were 24 films in the international jury to see. I think they have pushed the boundaries of genres, and the kind of creation and imagination of cinema has changed drastically. I think this is just a great beginning of celebration of cinema, and especially when we are celebrating 75th year of India, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. It's a special way, it's a special year for all of us to take cinema, which is, I would say, which is the subpower of this country. From the opening till end, it was absolute celebration of cinema and culture of India. And I think even, I was talking to many international guests here, right. I mean, the delegates were also very happy. The way Government of India conducted the festival is incredible.
Right. Mr. Nalla Muthu, if you could also share your thoughts with us. How was this celebration of Cinema 52nd edition of IFFI for you?
Yeah, it was a fantastic experience. Even after this post-epidemic, the response was very good. Lot of youngsters, lot of newcomers, lot of people from worldwide, and particularly non-fiction category. So, lot of, we had a good opportunity to watch, different languages, films of 200 films, and we also selected some 21 films in the non-fiction category, which is very great as a non-fiction filmmaker, and IFFI, giving a great platform for this, particularly for documentaries and short films and fiction, which is very good for youngsters, upcoming people. In this digital revolution, it's a great opportunity for everyone to showcase the film, and people can watch it and they can discuss. And my experience is good. A lot of good masterclass, various films in different languages. And everyone is very happy, and hybrid format is also really worked. And even though we are used to this, books and catalogs in the last whatever the years I used to watch, attend the IFFI, but this time was fantastic. The hybrid was really worked out, and the kind of the support with information broadcast ministry was given to us, making India as a digital republic also one of the fantastic things for us. And again, we also wanted to promote a lot of regional language films, which is a very good move for everyone from different regions in our country.
Right. Mr. Panda, there are so many aspects of 52nd edition of IFFI that we can talk about. It doesn't really, not only celebrates the cinema of the present and the past, but also paves way for the future generation, the talent that is yet to make its mark, to sort of learn from the present brilliant minds. 75 creative minds were recognized, and they also got a scope to interact with the best from the world of cinema. How do you see this platform that brings together the future, the past and the present of cinema geniuses?
Well, that's where the future lies. I think when ministers thought about these 75 creative minds, young people coming and being part of the festival, meeting international delegates, international filmmakers, I think this is a great scope for India to see. Like in the speech, if you see in the closing, minister said that India is going to lead in content making, and it truly can. We are the largest producing cinema producing country. And if you nurture our new talents, the young people, I think it's going to be massive. It will be one of the leading center in the world globally in cinema and TV content.
And sir, we've also admired your films, particularly the one raising various social issues. How do you see that sort of an awareness among the young filmmakers as well, the ones that you interacted with? And how does IFFI again provide a platform for social causes and cinematic brilliance to come together?
Well, I think the new generations are also understood. If you see all the new young filmmakers, see, end of the day, art comes from the society.
Good.
It's the reflection of society, whether it is painting, music, or cinema. And cinema is a form, people love it more because it's right in front of your face, much more entertaining. And I think if you see the new generation's films, it's talking about that. And social issues, and it's a great medium, great tool to speak about social issues. And that's how we can, transform our country into a better space. And this is our soft power. Our cinemas have been soft power for years.
Right. Mr. Nalla Muthu, India is celebrating 75th year of independence, and we know our core strength lies in our diversity. One of the reasons why IFFI is so popular is the manner in which it is able to capture the unique diversity of India in its cinema and in its art. Take us through your experience of really going through, watching and experiencing that diversity as a jury member.
Yeah, I mean, you rightly said, because of the diversity of our country, this digital revolution, the content is a king. We watched a number of films which completely, in different regions, different language. It is a very good thing to see nowadays. Nowadays, hardly any in our non-fiction category, we saw some tremendous, subjects which has never been seen before, and the places and the kind of storytelling was completely changed. The use of medium used, they used a different way of, completely changed this usual grammar which we used to make films. And that's one good thing we noticed. The content is a thing now, and everyone is exploring it from various diverse content from all over India, from different states, different languages. Yes, this is a big change, and one needs to welcome it.
Right, Mr. Panda, you've been part of IFFI over the years. Take us through also how you've seen IFFI, the celebrations evolve, and how it has sort of stayed in tune with the time. I'm particularly talking in reference to the manner in which OTT platforms were also made part of this edition of celebrations of cinema. In the times of pandemic, when cinema halls shut down, we found storytelling and we could see excellent cinema on our mobile phones. So staying in tune with the time, the technology, also is becoming the hallmark of this festival.
Well, I think pandemic made us change the way we view cinema, for sure. It has changed us completely. Even I wondered when I was invited for the festival, I said, oh my God, 24 films, how am I going to watch? Because my habit has become phone and laptop to watch cinemas. So, well, the way government adapted, IFFI adapted the whole virtual as well as physical, I was seeing the programming. And that too this year, including OTT platforms, was in fact a great moment. See, end of the day, as a filmmaker, we have been making films. I made my first film in 35mm. Then we started digital. Now, suddenly you realize that from films, I never thought that I could do a series. I'm now working in a series. So filmmakers are changing the format. The platforms are changing the format. Audience viewing new stuff. So I think the way if we adapted to that, to what could happen post-pandemic situation is remarkable. If you see the time and the amount of cinema people must have seen even virtually in last 10 days is big. I would say it's a very big success. And many other festivals, around the world, because I go to festivals, I've been to many festivals. I have never seen any festivals in the recent time has adapted such strong formats, whether masterclass, OTT platforms, virtual screenings, everything. So I think this is a great way. It basically, I would say, over the years I saw, it now set a tune for many festivals to learn how a festival can be conducted.
Right. On that note, Neela Madhapanda and Nala Muthu, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight, sparing time and taking us through your experience of the fantastic celebration of Indian cinema and international cinema at 52nd edition of IFFI. Moving on, some weather updates. The northeast monsoon has remained vigorous over Tamil Nadu, drenching the region, with the state registering rainfall in excess of 75% above normal this season so far. The cyclonic circulation that drenched Tamil Nadu this week continued to persist over the region on Sunday as well, with Rameshwaram and many coastal districts receiving heavy spells of rain. More than 11,000 people have been moved to 123 shelters across the state. National Disaster Response Force units have been deployed in Chengalpattu and Kanchipuram districts. Surplus water continued to be released from reservoirs across Tamil Nadu. More than 8,500 cusecs of water was released from reservoirs in Chennai, including Pondi. About 23,600 cusecs was let out from Mettur Dam in Salem district. Around 700 people were shifted to some 6 relief centers in Chennai. 392 streets in 108 localities faced a great water stagnation. Efforts continued to drain out water to restore normalcy in these areas. Meanwhile, a holiday has been declared for schools and colleges in Chennai and 6 other districts on Monday. Among major cities, Chennai has been the worst hit, with nearly 1100 mm rainfall since October 1st. This is the third time in almost 100 years that the city has witnessed more than 1,000 mm of rainfall. Overall, Tamil Nadu registered 612 mm rainfall so far this season, as against the norm of about 349 mm and excess of 75%, while Puducherry and Karaikal have notched nearly 1,300 mm rainfall. And Union Home Minister Amit Shah inaugurated a milk powder plant and automated storage and retrieval system, among other projects, at Amul Dairy in Gujarat's Gandhinagar. The milk powder plant, built at an investment of Rs 257 crores, will have capacity of 150 tons per day. The plant is designed to run round the clock to enhance the milk handling capacity of the dairy to 50 lakh litres per day from the existing 35 lakh litres. Speaking on the occasion, Amit Shah said, without Amul, it is impossible to cater to the need of milk for the growing population in the country.
मिल्क पाउडर प्लांट का लगभग 280 करोड़ की लागत से एक उद्घाटन यहां पर हुआ। अमूल सबसे बड़ा मिल्क पाउडर का उत्पादक देश का अब बन चुका है इस प्लांट के बाद। बटर में भी 85 करोड़ की लागत से नए बटर प्लांट का भी आज उद्घाटन हुआ है। अमूल के संचालन को सुगम बनाने के लिए ऑटोमेटिक रोबोटिक स्टोरेज व रिट्रीवल सिस्टम 23 करोड़ रुपया से आधुनिक तकनीक के साथ आज यहां पर उसका भी उद्घाटन हुआ है। एक मानो में चारों प्लांटों से अमूल ने अपने तीनों अंग को मजबूत करने का काम किया है।
And France's most emblematic Christmas fair opened in Strasbourg after being cancelled last year due to COVID pandemic. This year, hand sanitizers are side by side along with hot chocolate. As we conclude this edition of Newsnight, we're leaving you with these stunning visuals. Namaskar.